Welcome to Managing a Windows 2012 Server Environment. I'm your instructor, Robert McMillen. For our study materials, we'll be using the Inside Out Windows Server 2012 book by William R. Stanek. This is Part 5, Lab 2, Managing Active Directory and Security. We'll be discussing users and groups, group policy, and resultant set of policies. Users and groups, Active Directory users and computers program. That's the program that we use to open up the management of the different users and computers and other objects. Creating a user is where we create a user inside Active Directory using that Active Directory users and computers program. And you can also create a group inside that program as well. And there are multiple different types of groups. So let's take a look at that. So we're in Active Directory users and computers. Let's go ahead and create a new user. From here, we'll just call it test. Test will be the Windows logon name as well. This is the display. This is the logon name. We'll put in a password, which has to be at least 8 characters with 1 uppercase and 1 number or special character by default. We can say to have the user change the password in the next logon, or we can say password never expires, or we can say users cannot change password or disable the account for someone who hasn't started with the company yet. Click Finish, then we can double click on that user, and from here we have some informational stuff that you can put in about that user, and then under Account you have the user login name that they use. You can change logon hours when they can get onto the account or cannot. And you can also change when the account expires if you know their employment is going to end on a certain day. Under Profile, you can set up a profile path. If you don't put a profile path, the profile is local to the computer. If you put a path in, it will be on the server. Logon script will map any network drives that you may want to shares on the server that we may have created previously. And the home folder is where they will save data, such as Word and Excel documents by default, and they'll be the only ones who have access to that data. There's other information as well not covered in this particular lab, but you can refer back to the book for that additional information. We're also going to go ahead and create a group. So we'll choose New Group. Now groups allow you to have multiple users inside them, so we'll just call this a test group. And you have several options here. You have domain local, that's if it's just one particular domain. So in the widget llc.internal domain, that would be the domain local. Global is if you have multiple domains and you want any one of those domains to be able to contain users in that group. So if you have widget llc1 and widget llc2.internal, then you could have people from both of those different domains in that group if you choose global. Universal is if you have multiple forests. So if you have a forest for the widget company and you have a forest for some other company and you want them to be able to access each other's data, then that's what a universal group would be. Security is the default type. We no longer use distribution. Distribution used to be tied in with Exchange Server, but after Exchange 2007 they split that out and you do those groups directly in Exchange themselves. So we'll go ahead and click the domain local and security and click OK. So now we have a group where we can add members, and we'll go ahead and click Add and click Test, check name, and now test is inside the test group. So if I want to put all different kinds of users in here, instead of assigning share or security permissions to each of them individually, I can just assign them to the group, and so that way I only have to do it once. So that's how you create a user and a group in Active Directory. Group policies. You can create a group policy, you can edit it, and you can link a group policy to an organizational unit. And the reason you want to create a group policy is to limit users and groups of people to be able to do or not do certain things when they log into their computers. If you decide after setting up the group policy you'd like to make changes to it, you can go in and edit it, and then you can link it to an organizational unit or unlink it if you want. So let's go ahead and close Active Directory users and computers and open our group policy management. So you can see here all the same organizational units that we saw in Active Directory users and computers are all listed here, and they all have little carets next to them. And if they have a group policy assigned to them, you will see a group policy show up underneath. All domains come with, by default, a default domain policy, which affects all users, and a default domain controller policy, which affects just the users that log into the domain controllers. So let's go ahead and right-click and create a new one. So we're going to create a group policy and link it to the root of our domain. We will call it test. Oh, we already have one called test. We'll call it test1. There we go. So here's our test1, and it is linked to the widget LLC internal. If you want, you can right-click and check that, and sure enough, there is our link enabled. Now we can go in to the test, and we can go in and edit it, so where we can limit what users can and can't do. So this applies to both users and computers. So if you apply this to a computer, it means anybody logs into that particular computer. It doesn't matter who it is, they will be affected. If you apply it to a user, that means that user is affected no matter which computer they log into. So these are opposites. Let's go ahead and choose the computer. We'll click Policy, Windows Settings, Security. You can see there's just thousands of different policies you can do. Account policy, password policy. So if we don't like the policy of 8 characters as our minimum, we can go in and change the minimum password length. So by default it's 8, but we'll just go ahead and say it can be 7 if we want, and we'll click apply. We also have the password must complete complexity requirements. By default this is turned on, but we can go in and we can say it's now disabled. So you no longer have to have an upper or lowercase character. You can go in and change the account lockout policy, and we can change the duration from the default to something else. And we'll click OK. And then once we're done with that, we close it, and it automatically saves it. So now anybody who logs into Widget LLC will be affected by this particular policy. So let's go ahead and take it off. So now the link is no longer enabled, and now we're just going to delete it. So we think that that particular guy is gone. And then we have the various different other organizational units we can go to, and we can change to those particular ones if we want, any one that is here. All right, so now we have the sites themselves, we have group policy modeling, but the most important thing here is the group policy results. So group policy results is also referred to as the resultant set of policies, and it says all the different things that are going to affect that particular user that you choose to do. So we're going to choose a group policy results wizard. We'll click next. We'll say what computer is it that we want them to be concerned about, and we'll say another computer. We'll browse, we'll put in the name of another computer. Oh, that computer doesn't exist yet, so we'll go ahead and choose DCO2. How's that? There we go, DCO2. And we choose next. And now it's going to ask us what user it is that you want to apply this to. Make sure that we have DCO2 powered on. And now it shows the specific user, which we're going to have the administrator. You can have any user that you want. And we click Finish. So now we see that the report is being generated, and it's going to tell us if there's any errors, such as group policies that may conflict with each other, and it's going to give us other information, such as the GPO name. Go into Details, and it gives us a lot more information. We'll click Show All, so it expands everything for us. Tells us what our policy is going to be, our logon restrictions, our lifetime, for user ticket, access to this network. Can the administrator access this network? Yes. And all the different thousands of policies that you can have. There's also policy events. If it generated any events, you can see those, as well as if you go into the events on the local computer itself, where it shows all the different events. This particular one just shows events that have to do with group policy. All right, so that is group policy objects, the organizational units, how to tie it to them, and why you'd want to do that. Resultant set of policies, I also showed you that, how to review the results of those group policies and how to view conflicts and resolve them. So in summary, we discussed users and groups, group policy, the resultant set of policies. That is the end of our series on the Managing a Windows Server 2012 environment. And if you'd like to see more additional types of these teachings, you can go ahead and email me through the link that is on this website.